Hello, everybody. Welcome to our December Distinguished Speaker Series event. And we just finished the fall term at PSU, at Portland State University's Engineering and Technology Management Department. I want to congratulate everyone that made it to the end of a very challenging and unique fall term. We've done a lot of experimenting and learning, both how we make this work better for everyone, and we've had a lot of great feedback from people throughout the department. With this, the ETM program, we have some people that are new to the department that are dropping in and joining us for this open house. The Engineering and Technology Management Department is for helping prepare leaders in technology or based organizations. And now virtually every organization is technology based, especially as we're employing technology to deal with and adapt to this unique situation of living in a COVID affected world. And so in here, it's required drawing upon the skills, talents, and research of our field to try to improve upon how we adapt to this environment. And so in here, this department was founded back in 1987 as a chance for helping engineers and scientists from all different disciplines move into roles of greater managerial responsibility, helping it with new product development, project management, with technology planning, and other efforts. So the idea is there's common tools that we can use and apply to do this better. And today we have the good fortune of Dr. Tugrul Daim being our speaker. He brings many unique attributes in here, having been both a researcher, very successful and well recognized, but also an author with many books published in this field, and a voluminous and successful research program. Before that, he was also worked at Intel doing a lot of this research and applying it in the semiconductor industry, as well as he did a Ph.D. In our department long ago. And so this is a great opportunity to see what the field of technology management is about and how it plays a role in here. And so in here, oh, it looks like one thing that is a common issue is that technology can have its challenges. And so our Dr. Daim has just lost his internet connection momentarily. He should be rejoining us in just a few. And so I'm going to take this opportunity to show a little bit more about the department. And so let me go ahead and I'll do a screen share. And thank you for bearing with us. And so today's Technology Management Distinguished Speaker Series, Dr. Daim will be speaking momentarily. And the topic will be about his book, Digital Transformation, Evaluating Emerging Technologies. He's the editor of this book, which has drawn contributions from across the field. And in here, one of the benefits also is that he's been very successful in publishing with many of his students. And so very prolific, and you'll see some of more about the kinds of research that he's doing. So again, while we give a few minutes for Dr. Daim to get back online, ETM's value proposition, what we do is prepare engineers, scientists, and related professionals to provide leadership in managing technology-driven organizations. So that involves making T-shaped professionals where they bring in their deep technical area of skill and expertise. This, whether it is in electrical engineering, that was my background, or computer science, civil engineering, mechanical. Oh, we're fortunate we've got Dr. Daim back online. And so with that, feel free. I'll turn it back over to Dr. Daim here. After the presentation, we'll be available also if people want to talk more about what they can do to join the ETM family and participate in professional development opportunities. And so we'll have time for that later, but with that, take it away, Dr. Daim.
Thank you, Tim. So we just lost internet when we were about to start at the whole household. I don't know what happened. So I'm back here. So let me share my screen. There we go. All right. So, and there we go. Let's go. I hope everyone can see this. So, thank you for having me on this. And today I'm gonna talk about really the tools that we use here at the Department of Engineering and Technology Management to understand digital transformation and how you can be a part of it. Come join our department, take classes, and learn about it. So I'm gonna really share my research and how we applied it to digital transformation over the years. So as mentioned before, I'm a professor here in the department, and I'm also the director of the doctoral program. And for the last about 3 years, I've been the editor-in-chief for IEEE Transactions on Engineering Management, one of the top journals in our field. And before that, I've been again in a similar role for International Journal of Innovation and Technology Management. Now, so this is all about me. So our work, when I say our, I mean my PhD students, PhD alumni, and my collaborators. So our work has been, in terms of research output, have been ranked top, and we have received very good news in the last few months about that. So these are some of the publications that talked about our work here at PSU. One of them named us as one of the schools of thoughts in technology road mapping, next to schools such as Cambridge University in England, as well as our basically work, our papers as being in the top top 10 basically papers in one of the, again, another journal, Technological Forecasting and Social Change. So who is doing that? So it's I'm not the only one who's involved with that. So this my students and alumni have been a big part of it, and I'm very proud of them. And I can always say that I'm really lucky to have such bright people working with me over the past decades. And I've been collaborating with several colleagues around the world, as well as organizations who have funded our work. And this is the list of current team that is working on several elements of what you will hear in a few minutes. And also here's our alumni. So more than 20 of them are around the world working in industry, government, and academia, and helping them with several aspects of digital transformation, I'm sorry. So what's happening today is it's really very interesting. And we have lived through the acceleration of that through the pandemic, that the digitalization of every aspect of our lives, not just business, but our lives, from education to ordering food and so on and so forth. So technologies are changing that. However, we need to understand different aspects. We cannot just focus on technical or economic aspects, but we need to look at the social, political, ethical, and economic aspects of those. As we have, I mean, some of you may have kids and seen how the use of social networking sites on phones and whatnot have been impacting their lives. So the technologies have that, they impact us through different perspectives. So I'm going to talk about kind of a summary of what we have done in the past decade and then what we are doing recently. So it's interesting. Of course, these technologies and specifically information technology has first interrupted us in the workplace. And when you look at the what we call enterprise resource planning at the time, it's very similar to what we are living through with the personal really technologies. So we looked at adoption of such technologies to start with, things such as even Excel at the time, and look at how like individuals and organizations have adopted them. And we have been using what's called technology acceptance theory and models to evaluate them and work with colleagues around the world. And in these studies, I work with a colleague from Turkey, Professor Bashoğlu, and we have actually we have had, I think, more than 25 students working on different projects through the years and published more than 50 papers with him. So this one looked at the early phase, when this more than 15 years ago, looked at the adoption of mobile phones and adaptivity features on them. Now it's basically common thing everywhere, but we looked at what really was helping to adopt them. And then again, about that time, online services started to appear, and we again were able to use these to understanding what made people use those types of services. Later on, we had ideas of healthcare mobile technologies, and before these technologies were available, so we had prototypes and then looked at what really would what would have triggered people to use these technologies. And then the medical basically technologies started to appear. We looked at electronic health records and similar supporting technologies, and which factors would then help physicians and also patients to use such technologies. Now, this really helped us to understand that the technology adoption was really based on very similar factors, but the priorities would change from one area to another. Cost was an important factor, maybe in use of services such as getting a flight ticket or something, but the cost was not a big issue, or not at all, when you were trying to reach your physician for emergency. So, so I'm going to go through some of the recent dissertations. So these were more deeper research. One of them looked at the technology standards, and Dr. Ramin Neshati was my student at the time, and he was working for Intel when we did this, when we looked at this. And one of the technologies we looked at was development of USB technology, and why would companies really join development of such technologies and standards, right? And then we looked at Intel, and we basically found that Intel would really lead it, and they led it at the time. and for reasons of standards really help companies to drive their strategies, align their products, and as a result expand their markets. We looked at, of course, based on our prior work, further into healthcare technology. Dr. Lilia Hogabaum was my student at the time. We worked with Oregon Health and Sciences University, and also Lilia got got funding from Maseeh Foundation during this work. And we looked at the wearable technologies, and we really looked at the evaluation at the end of the evaluation when we have the devices that are technically competent, but we wanted to understand which device would be adopted faster than the others. And then we developed a hierarchical decision model, which we actually used in the prior research on standards as well. And then these again, both the technology acceptance models and these hierarchical decision models are tools that we teach in our classes. So there are several classes we base them on such methodologies. This was an interesting study. We looked at it. We looked at this time the senior population and use of teleconsultation. So this was very timely. This was done actually when the COVID pandemic started. So this was done in winter and spring of last year, and we looked at again what would be the policies or strategies that would help the adoption of this technology. And the regulations and financial elements were leading. And through the pandemic, the healthcare institutes verified that they actually focus on those so that this technology would be adopted. Of course, technology is not just changing healthcare, it's changing everything. So we looked, this study was another one, looked at this time the adoption of such technologies by cities. Smart cities is a very recent term, and we working with the city of Portland, we looked at how cities can evaluate their readiness for these basic big data projects they are getting into for their smart city initiatives. And then it was interesting that one of the results showed that the people were the most important element, and their basically skill set. So in terms of having data scientists and the right skill set was the major readiness item. We looked at, again, one of my students, former students looked at it, Dr. Hussam Barham. He is now working for Amazon. So he was hired very fast through basically having these skill set really. And he looked at projects like traffic safety sensor project or connected streetcar project from the Portland city. And we were able to basically identify weaknesses of these projects in terms of cities readiness, and we're able to provide them what to do so that they could improve their readiness. Another one we have done was done again by one of my former students, Dr. Naim Rahman. He is working at Intel, and we looked at the adoption of big data technology, really, and specifically we looked at the Hadoop technology. We used a very similar methodology like the one I introduced in the beginning, based on technology acceptance model, and we identified really what would help the engineers to use these technologies much easier, and that would help them use these technologies. And then every time when we do these, we come up with implications for basically managers as well as researchers. In this case, there were clear results helping managers to train really their users. So that they would be the users would not have any perceptions or misperceptions about the technology. Now, it's interesting. Remember, I showed you an ERP chart at the beginning, and when I'm looking at the student information technologies today, they have similar charts. It's very much, I mean, we are now going from systems that we use to manage products to humans. However, of course, products, I mean, humans are not products. So there are many, many other perspectives that we have to be aware of. So that's why initial implications or initial implementations of such technologies failed because, again, people did not consider human aspects, which we actually talk about in many of our classes in the program. And we were just discussing before this seminar that, again, there were some implementations recently which really lacked understanding of the human element. So one of, again, my former students who is now actually an adjunct faculty at Oregon Health and Sciences University, Dr. Van der Schaaf, looked at the adoption of such systems at PSU. And during the pandemic, basically, last year, and found really, again, the similar results like we found at Intel in the case of big data tools, which is really skills. I mean, you really need to bring the skills of users up to date by training them, and really manage the peer pressure because social, I mean, others are influencing the adoption of these technologies. So really training at different levels are needed. It's very interesting. I mean, I've done a research back in more than 25 years ago, close to 30 years ago, looking at robotics, adoption of robotics technology. And the research was saying that training is the most important one. And training has to be at different levels, right? So from awareness to really to the technical. And we see that today at even for the cases of advanced technologies. Now, one of the anecdotes I've heard over the years, and just talking about Dr. Rahman, he just joining the call. Naim, Naim, if you're on the call, I just mentioned you and your work a moment ago. So going back to the
Thank you.
anecdote, hi Naim, back to the anecdote I was talking. So the when introducing technologies has always been a problem, and always has been a resistance, right? So we have to manage that resistance. And in the time, I think this was in Switzerland or France, but I'm sure it was in Switzerland. And if I'm not mistaken, this was maybe in the cheese production, but I'm not 100% sure. But it was a production facility, and they introduced a new machine. Okay, and the workers were really afraid that they were gonna lose their job, so they threw their shoes into the machine and broke it. So then the word sabotage came out of that because the workers' shoes were they were called sabots in Switzerland. So sabotage came out of that. So what I'm trying to say is that it's very important that we train users, and it's not just skills training; it's awareness training at every level. Now, one of the last items I'm going to talk about again is we mentioned we looked at it a long time ago, and recently we looked at it in Saudi Arabia. It's a different region, and how basically what the factors were for adoption of these technology, and then we found interestingly that performance expectancy, perceived enjoyment, design, and even brand influencement and social influence were really driving people's adoption. So people were looking at not just communication, but what kind of apps they would have and how they would have different types of entertainment and what others would say about this. So in terms of social really influence. So it again, this was another interesting finding. So I think I was trying not to take too much time just to give you a glimpse of what you would experience if you join our program. So it's like a preview of a movie. So if you want to see more, come and see the movie, right? But in conclusion, I'd like to say that the technologies are changing how we, I mean, the current technologies that we are seeing being implemented, such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, or blockchain technologies, are changing the way we do business and how we live. And we have seen how that can change during the pandemic, that we can actually continue working using information technology. A lot of people didn't believe in that, and it happened. And it's but the implications are not just technical or economic; it has social, political, as well as ethical implications. I mean, for example, even in the case of developing vaccines and distributing them, there are a lot of ethical elements that governments need to consider. Again, and different events can always accelerate the adoption, as we have witnessed. So that's all I have for you today. Again, like I said, if you want to hear more, come and take our classes. With all that, so it's back to you, Tim.
Thank you, Tugrul. So there were a few questions in the chat, and so why don't we take a moment to address those? So Tugrul,
Sure.
Aubrey Salazar asked a question. Skill sets are the biggest barrier, question mark, or one of the most significant barriers to adopting technologies? So
lack of skill sets. Lack of skill sets, not the skill set. So when you don't have the skill set, you don't understand the technology, and it basically impacts the adoption. So lack of having the right people, right engineers, data scientists, and so on and so forth will basically impede the adoption and successful implementation of the technology.
And in some ways, that's consistent with the field of ETM, where everybody is a technologist coming in. They're understanding technology in some way, whether they're an engineer or a scientist. I mean, we've had people with all different technical backgrounds come in and succeed and do well, and often relaunch and reinvent themselves in their careers. So thank you, Tugrul. I'm going to go ahead. If you could turn off screen share, I can go ahead and share my screen as well. And then I'll go ahead and show a few more things just to highlight for people. Let's go in here, and we should be able to see the winter 2020 classes, I believe, correct? Is that okay? And so yeah. In here, in winter, we have a full slate of classes that are available, and all of our ETM graduate level classes are available to other engineers in PSU that are at the graduate level. So if you're enrolled—
I would point out that the term that's about to start is winter 2021.
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Sean. So let me go ahead. Real-time corrections. I am so looking forward to being done with 2020 that I am eager to change that thing. So thank you for pointing that out to me. I, like most people, am very happy to close the door on the year 2020. So in here, I just wanted to give a quick rundown, because in our field of ETM, we welcome people from all different technical disciplines. And so, as I mentioned earlier, I'm an electrical engineer by background. Dr. Daim is a mechanical engineer originally, as well as our founding department chair, Dr. Kokaglu, was a civil engineer. We've had a lot of people with software engineering backgrounds, whether formal or informal, that are wanting to go into areas of project management and software engineering management. So in here, we offer right now a class for Introduction to Product Design with Bill Dresselhaus that exposes people in the undergraduate areas across campus to the idea of design. And so it's not a full ETM kind of background in class, but it tries to say everybody is now becoming a designer. And that's a great opportunity to take a class is a part of university studies that brings in people from all over campus to learn more about the design philosophy and process. Dr. Weber's teaching a strategic management of technology class. That's a great class on how do you manage where to get to for technology planning. Decision making with Dr. Daim, you heard him discuss it, and the book on HDM that was published, that's central to a lot of what we do. I mean, we don't just do analysis for the sake of analysis, but it's to make decisions and get stuff done. Technology transfer, again, core to our area, that we don't just develop technology, it must be applied and often transferred and brought in different ways. Data warehousing is a class I'll be teaching this quarter for the first time, and it's a part of the Business Intelligence and Analytics certificate, and it'll explore how do we manage data. And nowadays we're all getting swamped by it in so many different ways, as well as operations research, a class that uses analytical tools. And then new product development with Dr. Yetter, technology marketing with Dr. Yetter, and engineering financial management with Jeff Bush. TQM with Dick Sperry is a class that is one of our core classes for the project management graduate certificate, and it was designed from the beginning to be an online class. All of our classes this winter will be remote enabled and remote delivered for the sake of safety for everyone as our vaccines get percolated and diffused throughout society. We're hoping for a better spring and summer for everyone. Winter quarter starts January 4th, and in there, I mean, there's plenty of time for getting started. If someone wants to get started with just a class, you can take a class, sign up for one while finishing the application process and have that class potentially fully count towards a master's degree or a graduate certificate. So again, if you have questions on this, in a few minutes, we're going to create a few breakout rooms. And we'll have two breakout rooms, one which would allow Dr. Daim to answer and discuss more on the specifics of the research or the topics that he was discussing there, as well as in the other breakout room, we'll have it titled Getting Started in ETM. Sean Wall, our department manager in ETM, and I will be in that breakout room as well, being able to answer any questions you might have about taking classes, getting started, what the programs might be. And so we'll separate into two breakout rooms as well momentarily. So again, if you want more information, feel free to email us, etminfo@pdx.edu. It's a great single point of contact that can answer most questions that you might have. We also offer a daily Zoom call. I mean, essentially, whenever campus is open, Monday through Friday at 11 o'clock to noon, and you're welcome to drop in. It's an informal, friendly group. Sean is there, Melissa Rowe from our office, often Caroline and myself will all be there, and you can get answers to questions, paperwork processes, and other stuff. And so it's meant as a chance to have, again, a single point of contact. We miss the face-to-face that we were able to do in our main office and be able to help people. We want to do this because it helps getting answers at one place without getting routed around or long email chains. So I'm sure most of you also don't like the 20 email long threads. We like being able to have single point of contact and answer questions. So again, feel free to use those as well. So winter and spring will continue to be remote delivered. We're keeping fingers crossed for summer. And so hopefully the vaccines, technology development in action will allow us to return to more of a sense of normalcy in summer and fall. But in the interim, we're glad to help meet people where they are. All of our classes are remote enabled and allow people to do stuff and respond to people. Our classes were originally designed for the working professionals in the evening, once a week format, so we were able to pivot them well with the talents of people like Dr. Daim and others that have adapted to our working professionals need. So with that, any overall questions? Otherwise, what we'll do is we'll pop into breakout rooms. And so I'm seeing a few chat messages. And so in general, again, before we do that, a reminder, if you join the bit.ly, bit.ly/ETM meetup, that's a great way of hearing about ETM activities. And so that is one of the innovations our department did was creating a cross-listing, a platform that provides a chance for people to opt in to communications about what's happening in the ETM department. With that, I'm going to invite everyone in to join one of two meetup groups breakout rooms that we'll have. One on digital transformation, follow-up questions, discussions, anything if you wanted to talk more about specifics of the research that Dr. Daim and his colleagues have conducted, please feel free to jump in there. Or if you wanted to talk maybe specifically about his classes, that would be a great spot. And then for more general questions about getting started with ETM, feel free to join us in the Getting Started. I'm creating the rooms now. Feel free to choose which room to go into if you so wish. If you have problems getting in there, we can go ahead and move you into the room as well. So with that, once again, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Daim, for a great talk.